Hat, sunglasses, Pepsi, notes, sources, thick skin. Check. You already know. Let's go. Welcome to Gold and Blue today, everybody. This is a college football channel. So if you like college football, hit the like and subscribe button. It's that simple. Also, send gear to represent your team and be a part of my background forever. All you have to do is send it to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. Auburn is looking for a new head coach. They finally fired Brian Harsin. Remember, in the offseason, they were looking for a way to fire Brian Harsin. Investigation. See if there was inappropriate relationships going on between him and staff member. They couldn't find anything, so they kept him on. But in less than 2 years, fired. I don't even know why they hired Brian Harsin. That was a bad hire. He didn't really prove anything over there at Boise State. Boise State does what Boise State does. They have good success, but he didn't do anything that was really eye-popping. And Brian Harsin has an abrasive personality. He was toxic to the entire football program. This was a good fire, but where do they go from here? 2 names, guys. 2 names. The first one, Hugh Freeze. And I know. Liberty just extended Hugh Freeze. And you think that matters to Auburn? I think not. Auburn has a lot of money. They have some major big-time boosters. They could buy out whoever they wanted, to be honest with you. Remember, they cut Gus Malzahn loose for a historic buyout. And now they're cutting Brian Harsin loose. That's going to be a buyout as well. So going out and buying out Hugh Freeze and paying him to be their new head coach, that's not going to be a big deal for Auburn. The question is, would Hugh Freeze like to be at Auburn? I think there's a case for Hugh Freeze at Auburn. He was the head coach at Ole Miss, had great success, beat Nick Saban multiple times, recruiting at a high level, and I know he did some shady things, but now 80% of those shady things are now covered under the NIL, except for the call girls. That's still not covered under the NIL. So don't do that, Hugh Freeze. That would be stupid again. But he had success in the SEC West at Ole Miss, so Auburn would have a lot of confidence about going out and getting him, hiring him at Auburn, having success in the SEC West, because he's done it in the past. That's the biggest thing that Auburn needs to look for. A coach that has success in the past in the Power 5. Not in the Group of 5, in the Power 5. Sometimes it works out hiring those successful Group of 5 coaches, and it does translate over to the Power 5 conference play, but you can't guarantee that. With somebody that's had previous success in a Power 5 conference, specifically the conference and division that your team is already in, that's a good sign. I do think Auburn needs to go out and grab Hugh Freeze, and I think they are, because I'm hearing a lot of fans saying that they want Hugh Freeze. I'm hearing that boosters want Hugh Freeze. I'm hearing that Hugh Freeze might be interested in Auburn. This would be a match made in heaven. This would be a no-brainer for both Auburn and Hugh Freeze. I think he would have great success. I think he would bring back Auburn pretty quickly. 1 to 2 years. Probably bowl eligible in the first year, 7-5, 8-4, something like that. And then the next year, you're looking at a 10-win season, possibly competing for the SEC West. Yes, that's how good Hugh Freeze is. Remember, whenever Hugh Freeze went to Liberty, most of us didn't even realize that Liberty had a football team. Now Liberty has consistently made the top 25. Think about that, especially us West Virginia fans. The entire time that Neil Brown has been at West Virginia has not been ranked in the AP top 25 once. Not once. In 4 years. In the few years that Hugh Freeze has been at Liberty, Liberty has been in the AP top 25 multiple times. That is ridiculous if you ask me. That proves how good of a head coach Hugh Freeze is and how bad of a head coach Neil Brown is. Hire Hugh Freeze at Auburn. He will get you out of this rough situation. He's worth the risk. He's worth the buyout. And I think he will have immediate success at Auburn. This is a no-brainer. But there's one other name that I think Auburn needs to consider, and I think that's Tom Herman. And I know, these were the 2 names that I mentioned for West Virginia, but both of these names actually make more sense for Auburn because of the location and the conference. I think Tom Herman would have a lot of success at Auburn. He had success at Texas. Remember, he was not fired from Texas because of lack of success or he had issues with the players. Don't believe what the Texas fan base is telling you about Tom Herman. The reason he was fired at Texas is because he didn't get along with the boosters. And that might be the one red flag at Auburn, because Auburn does have boosters you have to contend with, that you have to answer to. Now, they're not as bad as Texas, but they do have a voice at Auburn. So that's the one thing that might make Auburn hesitate as far as choosing Tom Herman. He did have issues with boosters at Texas. He could have issues with boosters at Auburn as well. But I still think Tom Herman would be a great hire at Auburn. I think he's a great recruiter. I think he would get them out of this situation relatively quickly. I'm not as high on him as I am with Hugh Freeze because Hugh Freeze has more history in the SEC West. But I'm still pretty high on Tom Herman, and I think he would be a good hire over there at Auburn. I haven't really heard much from the Auburn fan base or any of the boosters as far as Tom Herman. I'm hearing a lot about Hugh Freeze, so I'm not sure how they feel about Tom Herman. But personally, I think this would be a great hire. I think Auburn would most definitely benefit from hiring Tom Herman. This would be a home run hire as well. Not quite as high as Hugh Freeze, but definitely high on the list. Here's the thing. These hirings and firings are sometimes unpredictable. So really, we have no idea who Auburn's going to go out and hire. Maybe they go out and get Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina or Sean Clark from Appalachian State or some other high-level name from the Group of Five Conference. Who knows? Look at Florida. They went out and got Sunbelt Billy from Louisiana. And Billy Napier did have success at Louisiana. He was high on the list. But it's not translating over to the SEC. So really, look at the lessons, Auburn. It didn't work with Brian Harsin. It's not working with Billy Napier at Florida. So if I were you, I would stay away from those high-caliber Group of Five coaches. And I'm not saying all Power 5 teams should. Maybe a gig in the Big 12 or the ACC or the Pac-12 would be the right fit for some of these Group of Five coaches. Although Neil Brown, he was high on the list. That hasn't translated over for West Virginia. So even the Big 12 might be a little iffy. But definitely the Pac-12 and the ACC, they should consider some of these high-caliber Group of Five coaches. The SEC, I don't think so. I don't think it'll work out. Look at Billy Napier. Look at your previous coach, Brian Harsin. Didn't work out. Just stay away from it, all right? Don't do that. Go after a coach that's had success at the Power 5 level, and I think it will translate over to Auburn. Lance Leipold might not be a bad candidate. I love his offense over there at Kansas. Yes, they did go on a bit of a losing streak, but that's because they lost their starting quarterback. Oh, that means he doesn't recruit well. If you lose your starting quarterback, you're doomed under Lance Leipold. This is Kansas. Kansas just doesn't recruit well. They don't have depth. So if you lose your starter at Kansas and you're having success, yes, you're going to take a step back massively. But at Auburn, that's not going to be the case. I think Lance Leipold's offense would be perfect for Auburn, perfect for the SEC, and I think he would have instant success. And unlike Kansas, Auburn recruits at a tremendous level, so even if a starting quarterback does go down, I think he would be able to run his offense effectively at Auburn because of depth. Auburn can recruit depth, so he wouldn't have to worry about that. Think about this. This is how Lance Leipold's offense works. Number one, you have to worry about the triple option. So you have to be gap sound. Your A gap, your B gap, and your C gap. You have to cover the dive, the draw, the sweep, and the toss. All of that. But on top of that, you have to watch out for the RPO. Yes, the quarterback can pull it, and he can run it. He's capable. And that's how Lance Leipold recruits, too. I love how he recruits. He recruits specifically to the strengths of the offense. So you have to worry about the quarterback pulling it and running. But on top of that, they run a spread pass as well, because the quarterback can hurt you with his arm. That offense is extremely difficult to defend. Just ask all the defenses in the Big 12. Whenever his starting quarterback is intact at Kansas, it's almost impossible to stop Kansas's offense. So yes, I think that would translate very well over to Auburn. So Lance Leipold is worth a consideration at Auburn. Don't know how the fans or the boosters feel about Lance Leipold, but I think he would be a great hire. So y'all let me know in the comments section. Number one, how do you feel about the candidates that I proposed for Auburn? Number two, if you're not feeling those candidates, who would you propose Auburn goes out and gets for their next head coach? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.